Hey everyone, welcome to our live stream today. I am joined by Dr. Marianne Matzo, our expert here, and we are going to be chatting today about how to stay healthy as you age. We'll just give it a few minutes here to let people trickle in. Welcome, and we're excited to get started soon. Welcome, everyone. As people start to trickle in, if you want to put your name or just a hello in the chat, would love to hear from you. Also, as we get started, any questions you might have, please feel free to drop them in the chat. They can be around anything related to seniors, to aging, and Dr. Marianne is here to answer them for you. I see a few more people trickling in. Hello, welcome. If you're here, feel to say hello in the chat. We're just waiting to get started until we get a few more people in the room. Again, today we are talking about how to stay healthy as you age. So if you have any questions, any thoughts on that topic, or just anything related to aging in general, feel free to drop them in the chat. Just make sure that you're logged into a YouTube account so that you can ask questions. Otherwise, you won't be able to join the chat. But welcome. We will go ahead and get started here. I see a good amount of people trickling in. Thank you to everyone for joining. Feel free to drop a hello. My name is Taylor Schumann, and I am the editor and tech expert for seniorliving.org. And today I'm joined by Dr. Marianne Matzo for our Q&A on on how to stay healthy as you age. So before we get started, I would love to just give you guys a bit of a background if you aren't familiar with Dr. Matzo, but if you've been to any of our live streams before, you know she is amazing. She brings so much wisdom and insight to these live sessions. Dr. Marianne is a distinguished expert in palliative care and a certified gerontological nurse practitioner with a career dedicated to caring for older adults, improving end-of-life care, and education. She's a retired tenured professor of nursing with extensive experience as a hospice and palliative care nurse, researcher, and educator. She's also authored numerous publications, including the first U.S. palliative care nursing textbook. She's a funded researcher, and she's a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. And since retiring, she has founded Everyone Dies, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the public regarding serious illness, dying, and bereavement through weekly podcasts and a children's book. So welcome, Marianne.
Thanks for having me, Taylor. It's great to see you.
Of course. Thank you. Good to be back. So I just want to post here, this is a link to Everyone Dies. So check out Dr. Marianne's nonprofit and podcast called Everyone Dies. It's amazing, has lots of great resources. She covers all sorts of topics. So she's available outside of this Q&A for lots of awesome topics. All right, so as we get started, we're going to jump into our Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Just make sure you're signed into your YouTube account. You can ask anything related to aging, but we will be mainly focusing on how to stay healthy as you age, which obviously applies to all of us because we are all aging right now. So I think this is a really great one to explore. So I'm excited to dive in. All right, so we received a few questions in advance. We'll go ahead and start off with those. I would love to know, Dr. Marianne, just generally, what are some of the most important habits people can adopt today to age in a healthy and really fulfilling way?
That's a good question. I think what's really important is that we ask that question when we're in our 30s and 40s, because if you wait too long, your habits and your behaviors can do, if you have negative habits and behaviors, they can do the damage on your body. And so we have to think about when we're younger, what kind of old age we want to have. So, for example, my daughters are both under 30, just. And I gave them both bottles of calcium supplements. And I said, you need to build up your calcium because your body will store calcium until you're 30. And then it's whatever in your diet supports your calcium. And if you don't have enough, it's going to start then taking from your bones. So you only really have until age 30 to build up those stores. So they're not thinking about when they're old and they could have osteoporosis and break bones and all the issues that can go with that. They're not thinking about that, but they should be. And so if you're under 30, yes, get it in your diet, but it doesn't hurt to add it in with a supplement so that you have really good, strong bones at 30 to kind of carry you through for the rest of your life. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of thinking about our old age when we're younger. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I started getting facials. And I thought, from what I read and when I talked with people, was that was a good way to keep your skin really good and healthy. And I had a woman who had come to the United States, had lived in a kibbutz. And she said in the kibbutz, there women get facials at least every month. And they have, beautiful skin. And I thought, well, that kind of reinforces what I was thinking. And so every month I would schedule a facial. Now, I don't know if that's made a difference, but I have really good skin now. It could be genetic. It could be because I had all those facials. It could be because I wear sunscreen and a hat when I go outside. But all of those behaviors make a difference. So if, let's say you're one of these people who don't wear sunscreen, don't wear a hat, and smoke. So when you get older, you're going to have, a lot of wrinkles around your lips from the smoking. You're going to have leathery brown, spotted skin. You're going to have a lot more wrinkles. And so, either you're going to spend a lot of money trying to bleach those and take care of those, or if you've taken care of your skin all along, you wouldn't have that problem. So everything that we do, the decisions that we make when we're younger, really has an impact on how we age. So what are the things that impact our growing old? Well, there's things that are called modifiable or non-modifiable risk factors. Modifiable are anything that you have control over. What you eat, sunscreen, hats, facials, whatever it is that you control. And non-modifiable are things that you can't change. Your gender, even if you change your gender cellularly is still what it is. So, and your genetic material. So the first thing that you need to live a really long life and, maybe live to 100 is to have good genes. And that's a non-modifiable risk factor. You can't go back before you were conceived and say, you two have crappy genes, you can't be my parents. That's not going to happen. So you can't control this. But if you've got long-living parents, you've got, they've got great skin and few health issues, well, you've got that gift that, depending on what you do with it, that can help you live a long and healthy life. The second factor is diet and exercise. And I always say diet and exercise because all the research supports that what we eat and how we move, or if we move our bodies, impacts the diseases we get and how well we will age and how old we will be. And so diet and exercise, good diet and regular exercise can add 15 years to your life expectancy.
Wow.
15 years, that's a lot. And you think, now, like if you're 30 or 40, you say, well, 15 years, I don't know, will I even care? Well, yeah, you will, because, we don't know what's on the other side. There are very few people who are in a rush to get there. And if you don't have to go, at 70 and you could live till 85, you're going to want to, generally. So 15 years for good diet and exercise. Third factor is a healthy environment. Now, there are some things that you don't control. Like if you have a certain amount of money or your job's in a certain place and you're living in a place that you can't move away from. Because of the circumstances, because of finances, maybe you can't control. But healthy environment and mental health This includes your relationships with your family, your community, and your attitude. Now, really can't change your family. I suppose you can, but, generally we're saying your community is wherever you're living, and you can change that depending on your job and how mobile you are. But your attitude is yours. You can change it. You can look at things, the whole glass half empty, half full. It's how you look at things. And you can choose to look at things in a very positive way. Or even if you're inclined to look at things in a negative way, you can still say to yourself, that's not serving me. That's not helping me. That's not going to help me live a happy life into old age. And say, I'm going to look at it differently. I saw a clip of Jeff Foxworthy talking with a group of people, and he was saying that when he looks at people, when he meets people, he always tries to find something positive to say to them. And that's a choice that he makes. Like, I love your hair. I like your shirt. Those are great shoes. Do you have to say those kinds of things? No, but that person feels better because you do, and you'll feel better because you've said something nice instead of something crabby. So you have your choice there. And the thing that you can absolutely control is your attitude. And then the last thing that really is important in terms of how long we're going to live is technology and what technology can offer us. And technology in healthcare are things like vaccines, use of antibiotics, surgeries when they're necessary. My mom had clogged carotid arteries, and her doctor was always saying to her, you need to get those cleaned out. And she would say, I'm not going to have surgery. And so that's a choice she made. The major stroke that she had was hers, her decision, because she could have had them cleaned out. She didn't want to have them cleaned out. And so did she make use of the technology that was available to her in order to live a longer life? No. And I'm not saying, well, she absolutely should have or she absolutely shouldn't have. It was her choice, and we all make choices. Make choices whether or not we're going to get our vaccines, whether or not we're going to get our flu vaccine. So if then, you're 85 and you say, I'm not getting those vaccines, who knows what's going on with those vaccines, and then you get the flu and you die, well, you gave up whatever more additional years that were available to you because you didn't want to use the technology that's available. So yes, that's a choice. I remember during COVID, Meatloaf, the singer, saying, I'd rather die than take that vaccine. And he died of COVID. And I think, well, that was sad because I really liked his music, but that was a choice. And I think it's an unfortunate choice. It's not a choice that I would make, but people make that. So that, again, is a modifiable risk factor. What your relationship is with the technology, what your relationship with your healthcare practitioner, the things that are offered to you, and whether you have the insurance or the money or whatever your understanding is of those things that are available to you, whether or not you take advantage of those.
Yeah, so it sounds like being proactive, starting as soon as possible, and thinking about, diet, exercise, attitude, technology, medical intervention, so many great things. I love that you said that about calcium because I'm about to turn 30, so I'm going to go buy a bottle. It's probably a good idea.
Well, you might as well get as much in you as you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you're 70, you might wish that you had.
Yeah, that's totally, totally true. I guess my question would be, so we talked about lots of proactive ways, and I think some of these still apply as we get older. But say you're somebody in your 60s and you decide, okay, today I really want to start focusing on my health, and maybe I haven't in the past. What are some things that they can be doing to get on top of their health? Maybe if it's new to them or just something they're kind of getting back into gear with.
Well, it's never too late to start. So even if you've smoked since you were 15, you've done damage to your lungs. But if at 60 you say, okay, I really would like to, I've got this great new grandbaby or whatever, I really would like to see her grow older. And so you say, okay, I'm going on this quest to live a longer life. Well, if you're a smoker, stop smoking. Because yes, you've done damage to your lungs, but your lungs will do some cleaning out. If the damage is done, it's not going to fix the damage, but it'll clean out your lungs, and you won't continue to put that stress onto your lungs and that poison into your lungs. If you drink alcohol, more and more studies are coming out now about the effect of alcohol. I'm not saying don't ever drink, but think about your drinking habits. Do you have a glass of wine every single night? Do you have a bottle of wine every single night? Moderation really, it sounds like like just a flip off, but moderation is really the key to everything. Like if you don't overdo things, you can do, occasionally some things that what we would call bad choice. Is that a good choice? No, that's not a good choice, but I'm going to eat the pizza anyway, and I'm going to have a beer with it, and I'm going to enjoy it and be quiet. I want to enjoy it. It's nobody's saying don't enjoy the things that you enjoy, but there is a difference between eating a pound of chocolate and eating a piece of chocolate. And and if you're one of those people who say, well, if I'm going to have chocolate in the house, I have to eat the whole box. Well, then buy a smaller box and say, this is my, one treat for whatever, and I'm only going to do this once a month, or, once every 6 months or whatever. So think about what's really important to you. What is it that is really something that you enjoy? Like for me, like I've gave up drinking my Diet Pepsi, and I tell you, I sometimes feel like an addict because I'll think, oh my God, I would love a cold Diet Pepsi right now. But if I keep it in the house, if I keep it in the fridge, I'm gonna, God knows I'm not a saint. I'm gonna drink it, and so I'm drinking water because I know that that's better for me in every way possible. Do I like it? Do I appreciate it? No. No, I tell you the truth. I'd much rather have my Diet Pepsi. And, I have great empathy for people who have to like give up things that they really enjoy. But you make the choice as to what is best for your health. And we know when we're making choices that aren't good. We know that if we get in the car and don't put our seatbelt on, we know that that's not a good choice. Do you have a choice not to wear your seatbelt? Well, if you can stand the buzzer, yeah. And people do all kinds of things to avoid putting it on. But what's the point? Walk into any neurological unit at a hospital, and you'll see people with, and that's how I was in nursing school when I got floated to this neuro floor. And these people, this was in the 70s, and people were in horrid shape. And I would read through the chart, and every one of them were motor vehicle accidents. And I looked at these people who had been walking around, got in their car, whatever happened, and now they're, in a striker bed with a helmet on and traction, and question of whether they're ever going to walk again. And I looked at that as I don't know, maybe 19-year-old kid. And I said, that seatbelt ain't that bad.
No,
You know?
definitely not.
And I just, back then, you had to find the seatbelt because it was just like rolled up on the floor, and I was like, I'm not going in the car without a seatbelt anymore. And all it was just, I was accidentally, floated to this unit because that's where they needed help. But man, from that day forward, I've never gone without a seatbelt. So, those things kind of make an impression on you if you're in the situation. Or you can say, yeah, I look at the statistics and I really believe that seatbelts are important. So you look at the things that you're doing in your life and you say, well, is it serving me? Is it helping me live a longer life? Is it making me feel better? Is it making me feel worse? And you go from there. There is all the information in the world available on the internet about what helps our bodies and what hurts our bodies. And it's really kind of relatively simple because what's required for a healthy body, is making a choice to like get off your phone and get off of YouTube or whatever it is that sucks up all your time. If it's a game, if you went for a walk instead of spending that hour playing that game, your body would be so much healthier and you would feel so much better and your function would be so much better in terms of being able to do the things that you want to do. So it's all a choice. It's all a choice. And those are the modifiable risk factors.
Definitely. So it's really just about, looking at your everyday habits and if they're helping you or if they're hurting you. And it's so easy. There's so many habits I think we do just mindlessly, like when I'll finish work, I'm like, okay, well, let me pick up and scroll through social media, or let me grab that Coke out of the fridge after lunch, and just really being very aware of the things that you do on autopilot, because those can make a huge difference, it sounds like. So, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about physical health. I would love to talk a little bit about cognitive health. So, what are some small daily activities or things that make the biggest difference in supporting our cognitive health?
Well, there's these old, I feel like that, lady with those old sayings, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's really true.
Mm.
It's really true. And so if our brains are it's incredible what the brain can do. And it's incredible how much of our brains we don't even use. But if we started using them and challenging them and learning new things, the brain says, oh, cool. I've been waiting for you to challenge me, and stop watching, those mindless YouTube videos. I hate to pick on YouTube, and I occasionally getting sucked into it too. And it's like, why? But, they amuse me. And sometimes I learn new things, but still, it is a time suck. And so saying to your brain, or having your brain say to you, you know what? I'm going to do a crosswords puzzle, or I'm going to do Sudoku, or I'm going to, every morning when I wake up, I do Wordle. And I get really mad at Wordle sometimes.
It's frustrating.
Because, like on the third guess, I'll have, three or four of the letters. And and I'll go through and I'll be like, it was today too. The same way. Was like I went through like all these words and I didn't pick the one that had, those last two letters. And it was like, oh, I was like, had a really great streak going. And it's because it could have been any one of like 10 words. But that's okay. I'll get over it.
We get it sometimes, we don't other times.
And then there's like the game, like connections, like forcing you to look at, is it nine words? 9 words, and there's a 12 words, whatever it is, and finding what are the connections between them. And those were like our, ACT, SAT tests is really what they are. But it's on your computer and it makes your brain like wake up and challenges it and frustrates you at the same time.
Totally.
So any kinds of things that you're, like, or I see people will, I'm going to try every week to do a new craft. Like, and there's, God knows, Pinterest and lots of groups on Facebook where you could say, okay, I want to learn how to knit. I want to learn how to crochet. And it's, it's not that much to get some yarn and a couple of needles and to see if you can teach yourself or go to a class and learn, or, there's classes online where they show you really, easily how to do these things. You do embroidery, all kinds of things that force your brain to work. There's games like learning how to play chess and those kinds of things. So anything that you can have your brain exercise, it's like you exercise your body, you exercise your brain. There's all kinds of adult classes that you can take. You can take them online, you can take them in person. Any kind of thing where you're kind of get out of yourself and let your brain use its imagination and exercise all the little parts of it that have gotten a little cobwebby. That kind of wakes everything up, because if you use it, there's blood going there. It's a great thing. And so there are things that you can do to help your brain stay active, and then that helps with your interactions with other people, and it kind of becomes a snowball because you're more interesting. There's the stereotype of the old lady or the old man who's just sitting around not doing anything and wonders why nobody comes to visit. Well, you're boring. But there's nothing, like, are you current with what's going on in the world? Do you have interesting things to say? If you have interesting experiences, do you say, look what I made, look what I'm learning how to do? So, consider that as a way of keeping your brain active. And you keep your brain active, you keep your body active. You look at the choices that you're making, and you decide. You're in the grocery store, you look at the bag of cookies and you say, I'm deciding this is what I'm going to do. Or you look at it and you say, I'm deciding I'm not going to do that, but maybe next week I will. Because it's not forever. It's just that this week I'm not going to do that.
Totally. So we've talked about mental health, physical health. Now we talked about cognitive health. I think one thing we talk about a lot is sleep, and a lot of us don't get enough. So I'd love to touch on why sleep is especially important as we age, and maybe for older adults who struggle, or young people, but older adults who struggle to improve their sleep quality, what can they do naturally to improve it?
Well, one thing is there's a lot of people have sleep apnea, which is where sort of the back of your throat sort of collapses or closes, and you actually stop breathing. And people will have, really loud snoring, and then they get really quiet. And that real quiet period is when they're actually stop breathing. And so the only way you can go and be tested. So if you have insurance will cover getting tested. And then if you need what they call CPAP, which you wear a mask and it continuously blows air in to keep that back of the throat open so that you can go to sleep and you can stay asleep and get really good quality sleep. Because you can sleep for 7-8 hours and have great rested sleep, and you can go into the REM sleep, which is that really restorative sleep. And the REM stands for rapid eye movement, and if somebody's in it, you can see their eyes will be moving back and forth. And as people age, they go into that REM sleep less and less. So there's a smaller percentage. If you stop breathing because of you have sleep apnea, you wake yourself up. That's how you kind of start yourself breathing again. And if you're doing that constantly through the night, your body can never stop and go into that REM sleep. So you're getting the technical term for that is crappy sleep. And so you wake up and you feel like, oh God, I'm still really tired. You take a nap in the afternoon, you go to bed early, and you never feel really rested. And so the CPAP, like I said, it blows that air in, it keeps this open, and you can go to sleep and stay asleep and not end up waking yourself up and actually get into some really good REM sleep and wake up feeling so much better. And I can tell you, I think I've mentioned before, I like to go to estate sales. And I can't tell you how many times I've been to estate sales. And there's the CPAP and all that stuff, brand new in a bag that the CPAP people gave it to them. And then, they're selling it for like $500. It's like, that would have been much more valuable if you'd used it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now selling it at an estate sale. And people say, oh, they're uncomfortable. I don't like doing it. I don't like wearing it. Well, the behavioralists in the world have found that if you do something for 30 days, your body and your mind will get used to it and it won't bother you so much. So you need to do something for like 30 days and just say, I'm going to do it for 30 days if I want to or not. And at the end of that 30 days, you'd be like, it's not such a big deal. I'll put it on. I'm sleeping better. And really, it'll help your, like I said, your sleep hygiene. But it also, what they have found is that people with sleep apnea, if they have it long enough, can get what's called pulmonary hypertension, which can result in damage to the heart. And you don't need that. There's enough stuff breaking as you get older. You don't need to do something because you haven't been wearing your CPAP. So talking to your doctor, see if you need to have a sleep study. I can't tell you how many of my patients who they say, oh, I'm really tired, and I'll say, well, let's send you for a sleep study. And they go and they find out just how horribly they're sleeping because, they can show them all the graphs and stuff. And it's like this miraculous change when they're able to sleep well. And so the other piece of things is shutting off all the technology in your bedroom. People have TVs in their bedrooms. You've got your phone, you've got your iPad, God knows what other things you've got with the lights. We're not built, we're animals, right? We're not built to have all that light and then just say, okay, now I'm going to go to sleep. It just doesn't work that way. And so you need to turn the lights down about an hour before whatever your bedtime is, and choose a bedtime so that you get 8 hours sleep, and shut off the lights an hour before, shut off the TV. Some people sleep with the TV on, and that's not conducive to good sleep. And people will say, well, I can't sleep any other way. Well, do it for 30 days and you will be able to do it, because naturally it's what your body needs, is that quiet and that dark, so that the melatonin that's within your body can be produced and can put you to sleep. What you're doing is you're kind of undermining what your body is built to do to go to sleep. So those are things that you can do to help you get the rest that you need. A cooler bedroom is typically more comfortable for people to sleep. If it's too hot, your body wakes up, throws off the blankets, all of that. Anything that's going to wake you up once you've gone to sleep, you want to say, is that serving the best purposes for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, the screen thing can be so hard to break because you just look at your phone right before bed and don't even think about it. So that's a really good one to be cognitive of. We have another question related to sleep from one of our viewers. She asks, are afternoon naps beneficial or can they interfere with a good night's sleep?
Well, part of the idea is how long is your nap? Now, for me, and I'll be honest with you, I can't take a 15-minute nap. I wake up and I'm like groggy and irritable. Like a 15-minute nap doesn't do me any good. I need like an hour and a half, and I feel better when I wake up. Some people can do the power nap, can do a 10, 15-minute nap. My husband will say, I'm going to lay down for 15 minutes, and he's up in 15 minutes and has all of his energy back. I'm envious of that, but I know that's not how I work. So you look at, Simone, you look at it for yourself and you say, how do you feel when you take a nap? Do you wake up refreshed? How long do you need for a nap? So like if you're me and you need an hour and a half, do you have an hour and a half in the middle of your day to take a nap? I don't generally. And so I don't bother with it because I know I'm going to feel crappy. But if I have an hour and a half, it's like a great luxury to me to lay down and take a nap like that, like a long nap. Now, in terms of your sleep at night, you need to look at it for yourself. Like, are you still able to go to sleep? Like for me, I like to go to sleep around, no, I don't like to go to sleep around 10, but I go to sleep around 6. I like to be up at 6 because it's ungodly hot here. And I like to get outside early before it's too hot to work in my garden. So my goal is I want to work in my garden. So that means I need to get to sleep at a certain time so that I can be up by about 6 and in the garden by 6:30. So if my nap keeps me from being able to fall asleep so that I can get up for 6, then it's not beneficial for me. So there's nothing wrong with a nap if you're tired in the afternoon or if you had a bad night's sleep the night before. There's nothing wrong with it. Go ahead and have it if you feel better doing it, but you can still go to bed and go to sleep when you need to and get up when you need to. You have to look at the big picture. And so if it works for you, you have the blessing to have a nap. And if it's not working for you, then you say to yourself, well, I know if I take this nap, I'm going to be up much later and I'm not going to be up either in time for work or for whatever else it is. Then you need to make a choice.
Yeah, that makes sense. So definitely just depends on the person and their habits. And now I wish that I had more time for naps because naps are really great.
They're wonderful.
They're so great. Okay, another question. Are there certain health screenings or preventative care practices that are often overlooked, but maybe older adults should be considering, or maybe screenings that younger people should be getting to set themselves up for success later?
Well, those are kind of two different questions. So for the older people, we talked about using technology, right? So a pneumonia vaccine, and I think those are once every 3 years, but your pharmacist will know or your doctor will know. But the pneumonia vaccine will help you from getting pneumonia, which when you're older, and especially older and in poor health, can result in death. And so it's one of those things you should want to avoid. So that vaccine is good. A shingles vaccine is good because shingles really hurt. And sometimes they take a long time to go away. And it's in your body there. It's the chicken pox from when you were a kid. It's just sort of in there waiting for you to feel, to be all worn down. And the last thing you need is shingles, and then you get the shingles. And so if you get that shingles vaccine, then you can not have shingles in your life, which they are really painful. your flu vaccines on a yearly basis, because those change every year because the strains change every year. So those are the kinds of things. A colonoscopy when you turn 40. And if you have colon cancer in your family, they've changed some of the guidelines so that you can get that colonoscopy at a younger age. So blowing that off could really have dire consequences in terms of colon cancer, because that can come up and you don't necessarily know about it until kind of a little bit too late. Things like getting your mammogram, according to what the guidelines are. So those kinds of things you can look up and you can say, for my age, what do the guidelines say that I should have? For younger people, the HPV vaccine before you become sexually active. And so in many cases, that's for kids like 12, 13 years old, or maybe even younger. And I know that there's a lot of resistance to people having their children get that HPV vaccine. And they say, well, they have that HPV vaccine. They're going to think, well, I can just go and have sex. Well, no, they're not going to think that. I mean, it doesn't work that way. But without that HPV vaccine, for both boys and girls, when they do become sexually active, they can, in their later years, either get mouth cancers, tongue cancers in men, and cervical cancer in women. And both of those are quite unpleasant to treat and to have. And for vaccine, it's 3 vaccines. I think is it 1 a month for 3 months, or you look at what the current guidelines are. But those cancers are really, really quite unfortunate and painful. And I can remember my girls were real young, and they were like maybe 10, 12. And the doctor said, well, there's this new vaccine. I mean, it was really new back then. And here's the story with it. And I was like, okay, I couldn't imagine me knowing that was available to them and saying, no, I'm not going to let my child have that for whatever reason. And then, God forbid, in their adult years, they get those cancers. And if I knew that they didn't have to do that, they didn't have to have that. Because you can get, you can be in a married relationship and one person goes off with somebody else and brings that that virus back into the house, into the bed, and your daughter could then get cervical cancer. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. And so those are things that you can do to, there really is no other vaccine that can prevent cancer other than the HPV one.
Yeah, that makes sense. So staying on top of your screenings, looking at, the vaccines available to you at different ages, that all makes sense. And so, okay, we've talked a little bit about screenings, what we can do. One other thing I'd love to talk about is social connection. So, social isolation is such a prevalent concern for older adults. And I know that can have a really negative impact on your overall health. So what are some ways that we can stay socially connected, even if maybe there's physical limitations or there's distance that plays a role?
So an important part of healthy aging is having a community. Having a community decreases loneliness and isolation. And in many countries have declared loneliness as an epidemic. And so what do? Well, your brain is a muscle. It needs stimulation. And so you're going to feel isolated. and alone if you're not in some way stimulating yourself. So you can socialize in person, you can socialize on your phone, you can meet via Zoom. There's all kinds of groups that, you can get on a Zoom call, and you don't even have to talk. You can be there and listen to what people are saying and listen to the conversation and learn something new and go back every week. There's groups that play cards together. You can join a card group on Zoom. I mean, it's incredible what's available now that even 10 years ago wasn't there. To say, well, like even 10 years ago, you'd have to put on your shoes. I'm one of these people, I come home, if my shoes are off, I'm not doing anything. Okay? My kids would say, keep your shoes on.
I love it.
So you'd have to actually leave your house to have any kind of interaction with other people. But that's not true anymore. Even this live stream, like you can say, well, I'm going to join that and see what I have. Maybe I'll ask a question and maybe I won't. But I'm there with other people and I'm hearing things and I can relate to that. And I have something to talk about when my daughter calls. And, you can say, oh, I was listening to this podcast and here's what I learned. And that gives people something to talk with you about and something that gives you to talk with them about. And then people find you interesting and you feel interesting and you say, here's what I'm learning. Here's what I'm giving and here's what I'm getting. Then if you've got the ability to get out of your house, my God, there are so many children who need, schools that need people to come in and read, or premature babies that need to be held, or volunteer at the lunch center or the thrift store or wherever, where you can go in. I went into a thrift store once and I found out that it was, I forget what the group was, but it was this, everybody there was volunteers. And there was this very old woman at the store who handed me this clip. And I said, what am I going to do with this? I had no idea why. And she said, well, that's how we keep track of how many people are in the store. And, so that, it's a small store. And then when you leave, you give that back and we know how many people are here. And I said, oh, okay. She got to talk to me. I got to talk to her. I had to carry the clip around in the store and not put it down and not lose it. It was a great responsibility. But if people knew what the clip was for, she didn't really have to talk to anybody if she didn't want to. So there was this, there's this community. It's like, I'm giving back. I'm doing something. It could be within your church. If you want, you can find something to do. If you've got a car, that makes it easier. But now there's Uber. I mean, like even how long, I don't know how long Uber's been around, but in the past, that wasn't a thing that you could just so easily have somebody come to your house and pick you up and take you wherever you needed to go. It's great. And, there's Uber drivers, take you to the hospital, you go feed the babies, rock the babies, do whatever and go home. And then when your grandkids call or whoever, you can say, oh, there was this cute little baby and whatever. So that it's your isolation and your loneliness. Part of it is the choice that you make. And part of it is what your body is able to do and how much money you have to be able to pay for the Uber or whatever. So if you don't have the money, then you say, okay, well, what other thing how else can I contribute? But with the technology we have and the technology that continues to be developed, there are a lot of choices and a lot of options. And so you can connect with the community. You can connect with people like you or people who are different than you. You can do whatever you want and not be isolated and not be alone. It's easier now than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So many ways to stay connected, whether it's on this live stream or in person, and getting it. I love your ideas about, volunteering, and yeah, there's just so many things that you can do to get involved, whether you're at home or in person, which is amazing. And speaking of finding community, I want to share a resource that we have here on seniorliving.org with you guys. It's called the Caregivers Corner. If you or someone you know is a caregiver, we have a Facebook group designed just for you. It helps you connect, share your experiences, and get advice from experts on any questions that you have. So feel free to join that or pass it along to anyone that you know. Um, and this has been so great, Dr. Marianne. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in, for your thoughtful question, and just, yeah, for being part of this. And we'll be back soon. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.